So we're still working on getting ready for Shakespeare in the Park sew-along, and I thought today I would show you how I plan to make my sawtooth stars. Sorry, I'm still videoing with my phone. I have my tripod and my camera all set up to start working on a little bit more professional videos, but I just did not get time to get that ready this weekend. So we're stuck with this for today. Now here are the sawtooth stars. In the quilt itself we have 12 of the 12-inch finished, and inside of those 12 we have 6 of the 6-inch finished, and then around the edges of the quilt we have 36 of the 6-inch finished, and we're not going to worry about those right now. We're just going to focus on the 12 that go inside of the larger stars. In those 12, we're going to have 6 light stars on a dark background and 6 dark stars on a light background. So you can see over here that I had my fabric out, and I just went into my scrap bin and grabbed a light fabric and a dark fabric. You want to make sure that you have really good contrast so that you can really tell what's going on in your block. And I went ahead and cut them up, and because I know I'm going to need so many stars, I just went ahead and cut up what I had. So I had enough to make obviously 2 darks on light, 1 light on dark, and then I had various left over here. I know I have more of this fabric in my stash, so I'll be able to make some more of that and pair it up later. Now, when I go to make my blocks, I am going to use the Doug Leko folded corners ruler, the small one, to make my flying geese. I know a lot of you do not like to make flying geese, and I'm convinced that that's because you just have not found a method that works for you, that you're comfortable with yet. This particular ruler works for me. I love it. There's a lot of different ways to make flying geese, and maybe you need to experiment with different ways, but this is the way that I like. It comes out every time for me, and I have this little bitty scraps. You can see these are tiny little scraps, and I don't mind throwing those in the trash. Now if you are a person who doesn't like to throw away, then you're going to have to maybe do the method that the book tells you that doesn't have any waste. The way that this works is just simply you're going to take your rectangle, and it's just like flippy corners. So I'm going to have a 2-inch square on top of my 3.5 by 2-inch rectangle. Now the way that I do is I look at it in the book. Now I have one for an example here, so I can look at my example, and I'm going to see which way is my star point going to flip. Is that right? Nope, that's not right. Is this right? Yes, this is right. Okay, this is the way it's going to flip. So my seam is going to go right along that fold line, which means I'm going to need to cut off what's behind the fold. Okay, so this little tool is going to go right on my square, and I'm going to use the tool to tell me where to cut, and what's behind it is going to cut off, and then I'm going to sew on that line. Now, sorry about the glare. Let me try and get that fixed here. Okay, so I'm going to get this square lined up as perfectly as I can right on the edge of my rectangle, and make sure that it's lined up. You might have to fingernail it, get it lined up as perfectly as you can. Okay, then I'm going to take my tool, and I'm not going to slide it or move it around because that might move my square around, and I'm going to put my tool on my square, and you're going to notice that I've got my 2-inch line lined up right at the bottom of the square, right on the side of the square, and I've also got my 2-inch line lined up right over on the left-hand side of my square. And I've got that diagonal sewing line lined up right up at the top, and you can see it's just a little bit off, so I'm going to have to move my tool up just a little bit so that that sewing line, is right up at the very top of the square and the rectangle where they meet. And then it's going to diagonal right down to that corner. Then I'm going to take my rotary cutter and I'm going to cut right along the edge of that tool. That's going to remove this outer bit from what would normally be your flippy corner. That's going to remove that, and it's going to leave you with an exact 1/4 inch seam allowance. So you're going to be able to take that to your sewing machine, and you're going to be able to run it right under your sewing machine using your 1/4 inch foot or your 1/4 inch guide, whatever you normally use, and you'll have that perfect 1/4 inch seam. Then you're going to press it, you're going to bring it back over, you're going to do the same exact technique. That's going to be flipped over now and pressed. Okay, so let's pretend that that's pressed now and where it's supposed to be. You're going to line up your other square on the other side. You're going to then turn your tool and you're going to do the exact same thing, line it up the exact same way on the other side. You're going to zip right across with your rotary cutter, sew it, flip it, and you're going to come up with this lovely little flying geese. And it is going to have, if you can see the red line on here, it is going to have a 1/4 inch right there, and when you put that in your quilt, you're going to have that little 1/4 inch seam allowance, and it's going to work perfectly for you when you sew it to your 3.5 inch center square, and you're going to sew right across that X, and when you turn it and press it, you're going to have a perfect point. So that's all there is to those little sawtooth stars. Piece of cake. If you want to get started in advance, you're going to be making 6 dark on light, 6 light on dark, and that's the first thing we're going to do in June. So if you're ready to go and you're chomping at the bit, go for it.